On the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Loftus, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is roll call. Mr. Moran is here. Mr. Rathel?
Here.
Mr. Mans?
Here.
Mr. Filarski?
Here.
Mr. Hornby?
Here.
Mr. Loftus?
Here.
Mr. Nadeau is excused. Item number 2 is the approval of the agenda.
And Mr. Chair, I'd like to add, we don't have a presentation scheduled. I'd like to add a presentation. Mr. Moxlow would like to address the commission.
You want to move that up to the top of the agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to get him, so he doesn't have to sit here and for the duration of the meeting.
Got a motion by Mr. Loftus. Is there support? Support. Support by Mr. Filarski to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item is Mr. Moxlow.
I know most of you guys. David Moxlow, 2331 Toledo Street, Trenton, Michigan, representing Verga Air. We entered into a lease with the township for our hangar. I think it's building 36 or on the east side. It was owned by another individual, went to his estate, and Phil Kennedy and I purchased that building and created a new lease at the time in 2007. So it was about a 15-year lease with a 5-year option for a renewal, option 1. And I can give you a copy of this if you want to. So it expired in 2021. We missed it, right? COVID was going on. I've been living in Idaho. Phil's been here, but we just plain missed that part of the lease as far as the 5-year renewal. So it says that, well, you missed it, and you know, it's history, you're out of there by 2026. The building belongs to us, right? So our request this time is to come up with a new lease and come up with a new agreement and have it, if we can get a 20-year lease, so we can continue our capital improvements and maintenance on that facility down there. So that's what my request is. The interesting thing about these leases, and especially this one, it was written as though it was a typical lease where the township or the airport would own the property or the building, but this is unique this way. So I'm not really sure how the helicopter guy, whether he has a new style lease that says, hey, we understand you own the building and we're leasing, this is a land lease. So everything in this old lease, you know, basically refers to maintaining your asset and everything else, and that's really not written that way. And I certainly don't want to burden you to get an attorney to build a new lease, but we probably should. Unless you've already done it and you've got a template with the helicopter hangar.
We do have a new lease, correct, Janelle? That was just drafted by our new legal counsel?
We have building leases, not ground leases as of yet.
Okay. But that wouldn't be too hard to do if we wanted to have her draft a new ground lease?
It would not.
What kind of lease does Mr. Tartar have?
I don't remember.
He owns the building, he's leasing the land underneath.
I don't have the lease in front. What does it?
We would just have to look at that,
Yeah.
Mr. Loftus,
Okay.
and see.
Because I think that's what Mr. Moxlow would like to have a similar, it's his building on our land, and have the lease reflect that.
Right.
Can you tell me what you use the hangar for?
Well, it's multiple use. Now, Phil and I used to both have multiple aircraft down there. We do not right now. Phil retired from Delta, and then he shuttled aircraft for many years. He stopped flying about 2 years ago. I'm in between aircraft. My last one was 2008, and it was just a great time to get out of it. But I'm looking for something to go back and forth to Idaho with. So we do, as a course of business, we actually do supply the aircraft industry down there. So we actually print parts for TAS Aviation for cabin class Cessnas. So we kind of do some maintenance stuff. I know we still have all the tools and equipment for, I'm drawing a blank on Bob,
Rice?
no, no, he still operates out of here doing avionics work. And he works for Roush too at the same time. Anyhow, he's still in there too. So I understand the regulations from the FAA. Again, if you look at those regulations, they're as though it was airport property, like a T-hangar as an example, right? You guys own the T-hangars. The FAA says, hey, we're going to comply. If we loan you money or you take advantage of grants or whatever it is, part of that compliance issue is that the T-hangars are used primarily for aviation-related things. We went through this before when I sat on this commission that you're on. If you don't fill the T-hangars with aircraft, then it falls back on you guys as a commission to say, well, look we need the revenue from the T-hangars. Whether there's a boat in there or a car or an aircraft, it doesn't matter at that point. I do understand the problem becomes if there are not enough T-hangars for the number of aircraft you have here at the airport. That becomes the problem. But I think it also says in those regulations from the FAA, because it was rewritten relatively recently, is that it's up to the local township or whoever owns the airport, whoever's doing that, to make those rules and to make that judgment call. And I think, you've read them recently, I'm sure.
I've read them.
Yeah. So you guys kind of have to look at that and say, well, what's the prudent thing to do, from a fiscal standpoint?
Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure that
Mr.
the
Rico.
information is correct.
The way that I understand is that under airport authority, we're under their jurisdiction because we accept discretionary funding from the federal government.
Correct.
So because it's their jurisdiction for usage for aeronautical, then they're the ones that really make the decision, not at a local level. That's the way that I understand it.
Except that there is a line that was added recently that says that it is up to the local jurisdiction to make that final decision on that. Because if you go by the letter of the law,
yeah.
it says you
I'm not
can't
an attorney.
have anything in those T-hangars except aircraft or a aircraft-related business, right?
So I've got the comments
Doesn't
here
work
that
that
was
way.
added to the Federal Register, and Janelle provided me with this. It's a lengthy read, it's a tedious read, but eventually it's much like what Mr. Moxlow was saying. If the sponsor, i.e. it would be us, can allow certain non-aviation uses of the hangars or the facilities, if it doesn't displace a specific aviation-related industry. It's a tedious read, and you got to get to the last.
Mr. Chair,
I've just got to keep the floor for just a minute.
Yeah, let Brian finish.
So we might need to take a deeper read on that to make sure we're in compliance, to go actually to the Code of Federal Regulations, not just what's added to the Federal Register, but get to the Code of Federal Regulations, maybe have an aviation expert read it. But my read on it is I could see no reason if he has aviation-related activities in that hangar space, he is in compliance with my read of what you provided me from the Federal Register. And the sponsor does have a lot of discretion, again, just to generate revenue to keep this afloat, to go from what the feds tried the one time. You can have an airplane in a toolbox and nothing else. That did not go over well with the aviation community, and they retracted that position. So leaves a lot of it up to us, but I'd like to get a final read on the Code of Federal Regulations and see what specific wording it has.
Mr. Rathel.
so, Mr. Chair, direct a comment to Mr. Loftus. Mr. Loftus, everything comes through the chair, and he directs the meeting, so I think that you being relatively new, but the supervisor, you want to make sure that you get the floor through the chair. Second, this is something that just came here. I don't think that anyone should be advocating anything. Janelle is fully aware of this situation. We are not attorneys. She knows what the regulations are, working with CNS and MDOT and FAA. And I'm not sure that any of us can advocate one way or another, not reading the lease and understanding fully what the lease is and where we're at with the lease and what the tenant's responsibility is and what ours is and where we are specifically at with the lease. We are just talking and advocating in areas that we don't understand. So I think what I hear is that the current tenant is asking for a lease extension, and that's it. I mean, is that what, you just want to extend your lease, right? Is that what you want to do?
That is correct. And-
Okay,
and
so the
I-
justification, the justification of that is great. You may have some reasons to do it. Mr. Loftus, everyone here will have a reason to do it or not do it, but we really don't have the information in front of us to say that we can or we will or where we're at. And I think that now that we know the commission directly knows that you want to extend the lease, then I think Janelle's got to put all that information together, all the legal information, get opinions, and give it to the commission so we can make informed decisions. I mean, is that fair?
That's the appropriate approach, I think. And if I usurped your authority, Mr. Chair, I apologize.
No big deal, Mr. Loftus.
Well, it is a big
Okay.
deal.
So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes,
I apologize for blindsiding you on this, but this request came in or went into Janelle a couple months ago. We've had a conversation on the phone, and I never heard anything back, so I just drove in from Idaho yesterday. I'm kind of weary, but I have my wits about me. But I'm here because we need direction on this. That's why I'm here. I'm sorry to blindside you on this, or I would have asked to be put on the agenda.
okay. Well, we understand your request and your need to extend the lease, and we will have Janelle start a discussion with you. As part of that, Janelle, we do want to know what the use of the hangar is going to be. So if you could report back to us. I know we're trying to, I guess I'll call it, crack down on people that are using hangars for everything but aviation or for airports. And we did have our attorney look at what's supposed to be the use. Mr. Loftus has brought up an issue tonight that I'm not aware of, that we have the authority to sort of decide if people want to use it for other uses. I know I am not in favor of that. If it's a hangar, there should be a plane in it. That's the way I feel, but I'm only one vote on this commission. So, Janelle, would you look into that? Start discussion with Mr. Moxlow about an extension. And I, for one, want a very specific idea of what that hangar is going to be used for.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, to add to that, just for clarification for you guys as a board, you can put a wrecked aircraft in there for a certain period of time based on the regulation, right? Now, the FAA is going to look at that and say, okay, that aircraft is going to be renovated or rebuilt or scrapped eventually, it doesn't matter. But they only give you a certain time period, and I'm thinking it's like 2 years or something. We don't have an intention of playing that game, but if I need to put an aircraft in there, I will find an aircraft to go in there. If we're coming down to that, I'll do that. I mean, I can afford to do that. But I think as a board, you need to think this through long-term and what's best fiscally for this airport. And that's, how should it be used? I mean, like Brian alluded to the ruling years ago that you can have 5 gallons of gas, 1 toolbox, and your aircraft in there. That was it. That was the ruling. And times change because airports this size are hurting. And we see it. I see it everywhere.
Well, believe me, we will make a decision based on what's fiscally best for the airport and for Grozeal.
Yep.
We will do
Okay.
that. Okay?
Thank you very
else?
much. I appreciate
Okay.
being moved to
Thank
the
you.
top of the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night. Have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And Janelle, look forward.
I'll look forward to talking to you. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the October 16th, 2023 meeting. Hopefully, everybody's had a chance to review that. Anybody have any
One that
comments,
I did
questions?
Yeah, that was the one I didn't review. That was the one we tabled? Is that the one we tabled?
I think so, yep. You want to leave it on the table?
You want,
Yeah, I didn't read that one specifically, so.
we can,
Table?
Yeah, I move that we just table that that month's meetings minutes until next meeting.
Got a motion to table, is there any support?
I'll support the move to table. Mr. Chair, just for the record, I intend to abstain voting on the approval because I was not present at the meeting, so I can't
That-
legitimately
Yeah.
say if they're accurate or not.
Okay, but you can make you can support a motion to table.
We'll support the motion to table.
Dave got a motion by Mr. Rathel, supported by Mr. Loftus to table the approval of the October 16th, 2023 meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item is item number 2 on the approval of the minutes. That's approval of the November 20th, 23 meeting minutes. Motion by Mr. Mans. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Mr. Rathel. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item is our financial report. It's the approval of the November 2023 financials. And we have our financial report in front of us that reads our revenue is budgeted at $1,144,429. Our year-to-date revenue is $785,197. And that comes out to just under 69% of our year. And our expenditures are budgeted at $1,144,429. Our year-to-date expenditures and encumbrances is $946,792, and that is 83% of our expenditures, budgeted expenditures. Our capital reserve as of the end of November is $829,226, and our past due summary as of December 4th is $23,065. Janelle, anything to add to the financial report?
just a couple of quick updates. One, just to make note of the expenditures, this period was for emergency ramp repair. We had crumbling concrete out there that was in pretty rough shape and a lot of fat out there. So that was an expense of $10,000 for that repair. The other updates would be, is you'll notice that Worldwise, he is due for a lease update. He will be renewing. It'll be on next month's agenda. He typically pays for his lease for 1 year in advance. That's the same with Dieball. He'll be renewing as well. So we are in contact with one another. And if you look at the building 75 tenant, he did make a payment and now his balance is only $3,600. And then real quick with our lattice subpoena. So it turns out that the court officer went, knocked on the door to the location in Southgate. Both John and Chris, Lattice and Upton, turns out they live together. The court judge asked to verify mailing address, and they both live at the same address. But when the officer showed up, there were cars in the driveway, but they did not open the door. So at this point, the judge just directed the attorney to continue moving forward, and they either show up to court or they don't, which will be sometime in January.
Do they make another attempt at the house, do you know, or do they just
I think,
one attempt and then they move on?
I don't know the answer to that. I can find out, but
I'm
I don't.
just curious.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mr. Chair, On the
Mr. Rathel.
On the financial report, just want to point out that, because we had a presentation, talked about our fiscal responsibility, or I'm not sure what the point was, but, so if we, am I right in, Janelle, looking at this, and if we take Lattice, which is a 17.6, our past due, 30-plus days, is roughly about 5,400 and some change, say $5,500, correct?
Correct.
The one, Building 75, I'm sure that's going to probably show up. He's kind of been doing that.
Correct.
So we look at that $250, say, of past due, which is the lowest that it's ever been. If we look at the capital reserves, which is our retained earnings, which is our money in the bank, it's profit after all of our expenses and our projects, including runways and taxiways and the projects that we work on for all the aviation projects, investments in buildings and things. 10/31, it was $847,000, which I checked, and that was the highest retained earnings level in the history of the airport. That's money, cash that we have. And you pointed out that we had an expenditure, emergency expenditure, right? That we had the money for of 800, and now we're at 829,000, say $830,000. So financially, and Ron said it very well, believe me, we're going to make decisions that are best for the airport and the township. When you do that, you have a sustainable airport that's safe and up to date with new taxiways and all the things that you've been working on for aviation and the new projects that you're talking about, T-hangar painting and maintenance and things like that. $830,000 in the bank. And not one of those dollars is taxpayer funded, either locally, regionally, or nationally. And that's an important number. We got to keep talking about this, right? Because it's really how we are measured as a success of what we do here is how financially secure are we, how stable are we to be able to invest in not only our emergency situations like you just did, but also long-term projects of being able to do runways like 1735, which is closed. So we have the monies in the bank to be able to invest back into our aviation infrastructure, right?
Correct.
Which is totally different scenario than it was back 20 years ago when maybe some people around here and sat on commissions and committees and how they had to do things, right?
I would like to add one more thing to that, John. Thank you for pointing that out. But I had a big meeting for the final walkthrough for the punch list on the taxiway project with MDOT. And I spent 4.5 hours with them. And he was talking about general aviation in general. And he said that our airport is actually, he gets really excited that he uses our airport as an example of growth in the general aviation, because yes, there are general aviation airports that are struggling, but he made a point to mention that we are growing, we are moving forward. So I'd just like to add that.
That's absolutely, because when we hear people come up and they say, you know, I've seen it, they're struggling, they're all struggling, this and that, and that may be true, okay, but it's just an indication of not understanding the Groh Zeal Municipal Airport, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's important to get the facts out there. And the structure of management that we have works with aviation, industry, community, and organizations like MDOT and FAA to be able to have not only the financial stability, but growth, right? Which means that airplanes go in hangars, airplanes go in T-hangars, because that's what we are. We're an airport. We want aviation, right?
Yep.
And I think the other assets that we manage also are there to create additional revenue generated through those assets that support the airport. So it all goes
Absolutely.
hand in hand.
Absolutely.
I need a motion to approve the financial.
So moved.
Got a motion by Mr. Rathel,
Support.
or by Mr. Loftus to approve the November 2023 financial report. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. Motion carried. I will move on to our action items. Our first action item is concerning Hall's Flying Service. We have a resolution in front of us that reads, based upon the recommendation from the Groseal Airport Commerce Park Manager, Groseal Airport Commerce Park Commission hereby approves the lease extension for Hall's Flying Service, 9505 Groh Road, Suite 210 and 170, located in the FBO, and approval of the sublease of Mitchell Aviation.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Rathel,
Support.
or by Mr. Filarski. Under discussion, this is a 12-month lease, and it's the suite number one.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, there's a typo.
Okay. That's supposed to be 170
It's supposed to be 175 up
Oh,
at the top.
on the motion? Okay.
Yes,
Would you make sure that's in the minutes, that it's 175?
will do.
And is the other suite 210 or 120? Because down below it says 120.
Probably 210. I'll
It's
verify it.
210.
I'll make a change.
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
under
Ray.
discussion. So this is a lease that we should be so proud of on this commission. It is for our flight school. It's for a company that changed hands last year. We worked very hard with Mr. Palmer to get a lease put together that worked for him and the airport. In the last year, there's been a tremendous success story for the airport, for pilots coming in. There's more student pilots coming in. They have become a tremendous asset to the airport and the community. It's not uncommon for me to run into people that said that they're learning to fly here, they want to learn to fly here. So this is a great example of this commission, the airport management, Janelle, you working with aviation, pilots in this group, people that want to own a business here and generate more aviation activity. So I can't be more happy this year to extend this lease. And I just, it is one of the highlights for me this last year of what this airport has done to increase aviation activity here.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Rathel, supported by Mr. Filarski. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Action item number 2 is the approval of the lease for Rise Above Adventures, which is located on the east side of Hangar 1. And we have a resolution in front of us that reads, based upon the recommendation of the Groseal Airport Commerce Park Manager, the Groseal Airport Commerce Park Commission approves the lease for Rise Above Adventures, and it is for a 10-year lease, or 20-year lease,
20.
of the east side of Hangar 1.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Rathel,
Support.
or by Mr. Mans. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Mr.
I'm on a
Rathel.
roll. I'm going to keep going. There was a lot of things 25 years ago that people looked around at this airport and said, boy, if we could just do this. And this township hall was one of them. We're sitting in here almost 23 years later, and it's been a tremendous success story for the community and this airport. One of the other major items of, I guess, a fantasy at that point of future achievement was to develop the east side of this hangar, which is on the other side of the Township Hall hangar, into a restaurant bar and turn it into something that would be beneficial for not only the community, but for the aviation community, to give pilots a place to come and eat, have a hamburger, and enjoy themselves, to fly from other airports to come in here to Groseal. We have found, finally, after all these years, we have found a developer. It is a tremendously successful, incredibly well-run developer that is all in with developing the east side of this hangar for a bar, restaurant, and some, what we call not residential, or
Office space.
office space. And so just, you're going to hear more and more about this. However, the ideas and the plans and the drawings are so exciting. I talked to them today and asked him if I could share what the name of the facility is, and he said absolutely. It's going to be called Whiskey Tangos. Whiskey Tango, which is a awesome name here at the airport. So it's both upstairs, downstairs, with views not only externally to the airfield, but also internally to the hangar. So you can come and you can have a burger, or beer, look in the hangar. But it is just so exciting to have this future development coming to increase aviation activity, to bring something here for the pilots that fly in and out, and to bring people in, and at the same time add another tremendous value to the community and the residents of Groh Road. So I hope you looked at this lease and you decide that you want to jump on and approve this lease as well. But for me personally, it is a dream come true to get to this night.
Thank you, Mr. Rathel, and I'd like to compliment you on the hard work. I know you've worked hard with the developer and trying to make this happen, so thank you for all your hard work, and hopefully we'll see a new restaurant and bar soon. So, thank you. Any other comments on the Rise Above Adventures lease? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Rathel, supported by Mr. Mans. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. Motion carries. Next action item is the approval of the land lease extension for Compeau Brothers. We have a recommendation before us that reads, based upon the recommendation of the Groh Road Airport Commerce Park Manager, the Groh Road Airport Commerce Commission hereby approves the land lease extension for Compeau Brothers for an extension of 5 years at a rate of $453 a month, with the CPI capped at 3% annual increase.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Loftus.
Support.
Is there support by Mr. Mans? Any discussion?
I can go, well, Mr. Chair, Compo Brothers has just been a great asset to this community. I knew when something hit the fan somewhere, I could make a phone call. They would basically drop what they were doing or close to it and be on scene. The lighthouse was one example. I like having them here. Again, it's just a great asset, and having them here means they're here first. So it's to everybody's advantage to have Compo Brothers here, and I want to keep them here.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Loftus, supported by Mr. Mans. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Your next action item is the approval of the processing a pre-award bulletin with Molnar Roofing for revised project scope of the work for the Island Athletics Center. We have a resolution in front of us that reads, based upon the recommendation of the Groh Road Airport Commerce Park Manager, the Groh Road Airport Commerce Park Commission hereby approves the processing of a pre-award bulletin for option number 2, phase 1 with Molnar Roofing with revised project scope of work for Island Athletics Center. Total amount awarded for this revised quote will be $129,081.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Rathel,
Support.
support by Mr. Loftus. Under discussion,
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rathel.
So I think everybody here had comments on this thing for the last year, and if not a comment, they certainly lived the issue. And I mean everybody here on this commission. And it was very difficult to get to this point of what we could do to save this facility. And through Janelle's efforts, we were able to hammer out this option 2, which I think is going to stop all the leaking and give us the ability to keep this building going forward for the good of the community and for the good of the airport. I mean, it's for sure it's a solid facility for the airport. So I'm very much in favor of this, and I just want to thank everybody here. I know Daryl uses the facility, and Greg's been over there a number of times, and Ron and Chris use it. We all care about it, but we have to make financial decisions that are best for the airport and the community, and it was a tough road to get here, but I'm really in favor of this option, and I appreciate Molnar bringing, some different options that were viable that we could do, and this is the best one.
We also, as part of this, had asked Janelle to put together a list of other things that have to happen at the facility, which was included in your agenda packet. So these are all things that we need to still pay attention to, that at some point, these improvements are going to have to be made. Whether they're made by us or the tenant is still to be determined, but they were all improvements that are needed within a certain period of time. So keep in mind that at some point, some of these items might come back before this group for approval to make some of these other improvements. Any other comments or questions on the roof item for Island Athletics Center? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Rathel, supported by Mr. Loftus. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. Motion carries. The next item on our action items is the approval of the cost for tree removal per the FAA. And we do have a resolution someplace, right, Janelle?
Yep,
Oh, yep, I found it.
you get it?
Based upon the recommendation of the Groh Airport Commerce Park Manager, the Groh Airport Commerce Park Commission hereby approves the cost of $20,000 to remove trees as it relates to the request by the FAA, or the requirement, whether it's a requirement or, it's required by the FAA, correct?
Correct.
So moved. Motion by Mr. Filarski.
Support.
Support by Mr. Mans. Under discussion, Janelle, this is going to be bid out to a number of, or it's going to be an open bid to people that want to bid on the tree removal, and at some point, the exact amount, we'll know whether it's something less than $20,000 to do this work.
Yeah.
And it's expected to take place when?
Actually just got a land survey done by Rains to figure out exactly the parameter of, it's gonna start in phase one. So phase one is going to be, we have trees on Groh Road on our property. So I think it's best to start there. So I had them do a survey and getting an idea of how many trees we're looking at in order to provide a safe glide slope, and I'll know more from there.
Is the intent to do it in the winter?
In the winter,
spring?
in the
Oh,
winter.
Okay, so before
Before,
leaves
correct,
bud out on the trees.
correct.
Any questions for Janelle?
Yeah.
Mr. Filarski?
One question. So, some of the trees are on private property as well. Has any action been taken yet? to,
Not at this
notify
time.
Resident?
Not at this time. I figured it was in our best interest to make sure that we're in compliance and removing our trees first.
And will the survey help determine which trees have to be
So there was, no,
cut, or has that already been determined?
that's already been determined, but the amount of trees it's difficult to do from the UAS survey. So what we ended up doing was doing a land survey, a ground survey, in order just to figure out the lot line, and then I'll be able to make a decision of how many trees I'm looking at. So I'm working with CNS right now for that.
Yeah. Anything else? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Filarski, supported by Mr. Mans. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item is discussion item. Anyone on the board have any item to bring up for discussion tonight? Janelle, anything for discussion, or do you want to just move into your manager's report?
I'm good, and I can just move into the manager
Okay.
report. I just have one thing to bring up. I know everybody wants to get out of here and go Christmas shopping, being that we are very close to Christmas. So, we are having to go out for an RFQ, a request for proposal for our consultant procurement for engineering and planning. And currently we have CNS. We had a 5-year contract with them, but of course we have to go out for bid. So I've moved forward on that process. I did put an advertisement out for that, working with MDOT, using their documentation for advertisement. Ads or the proposals will be back on January 3rd. We'll be opening those. But after that happens, we are going to need a selection committee to interview these companies that are coming out to say they would like to work with Grosse Ile Airport. So I'm not sure who would like to be on that committee. Just curious on if anybody's interested, who would like to be a part of that.
Anybody want to volunteer tonight, or do you want to think about it and talk to Janelle? This would be probably interview 2 or 3 companies. I'm assuming we would narrow a short list down to 2 or 3, and you'd interview them. Probably each interview is going to be half hour, 45 minutes, probably all on the same day if you can make it all
all
sort
on
of
the-
right in a row.
That's correct.
And at the end of that, probably make a selection of which one we want to go with.
Correct.
And if we could have 2 or 3 people, that would be beneficial. So if anyone wants to volunteer tonight, fine. If not, please contact Janelle and let her know.
Do you know what kind of time frame do we think we're looking at?
You have in front of you, I think it's probably 2 months before it's finished, if roughly. But the time frame for the complete process before we select,
Before we start interviewing and making a,
I think 15 to 30 days, it'll be on our time frame for interview. And then we, have to let them know what day we're gonna interview, so 10 days for that, something like that.
I'm gone most of February, otherwise, if it looks like it's not gonna fall within February, I'd be glad to participate.
Well, if bids are due back the 3rd of
The
January,
3rd.
we should interview before you're gone.
Correct.
I mean, it's.
I'm
So-
happy to help.
Yeah, you're looking at 20 days for consultant evaluation, roughly.
Yeah, as long
D-
as-
Daryl,
It should be done.
Chris, and Brian have
Okay.
volunteered.
Perfect.
Anything else, Janelle?
One not.
Not at this time, no.
Our next item is our subcommittee reports. We have none tonight.
I have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'll do that one there.
Commission member reports.
I'm gonna just-
Mr. Rathel.
Only 5 minutes. So, as you guys know, every year, at the end of the year, I kind of like to do highlights and then some of the things that I'd like to see that we focus on. But I'm not going to talk about some of the things that we should focus on because I won't have enough time. However, we do have budget hearings coming up, okay? And one of the things that we have to do is we have to address Janelle, okay? She is, the reality of it is she is our lowest paid manager here in the township. She's been with us now for 2 years. She's gotten all of her certifications done. She's experienced a lot of things, but I do want to just some of the things that when I sit around at night and think about the airport, which is pretty much every night, which is crazy, but that's just the way that it is. I think about some of the highlights of this year, and I want to have a couple thanks, and this is in no particular order. Another thing that we wanted to do was to put some kind of an outdoor landscape storage away from view on the north side of Perry's old office. And I wanted to thank Ron and Janelle for kind of working with the tenant of the storage unit. Ron worked and negotiated a lot of the fill to go over in that area and get that kind of plotted out, and we had berms that hid that area from the soccer fields. And then just recently, it got completed where Janelle worked with the developer of our taxiway. He had a lot of crushed stone, really high-end crushed stone, and Janelle had them put that over there and level it all out and pack it down and put a really nice base. And if you haven't seen that over there, it is beautiful. Ron went out and marked it off in between areas that he wants. There's a nice driveway, and now we have for free a high-end place for future revenue, okay? And I think Janelle's working on getting somebody there. We've had 2 great leases. We approved the second one. I talked about the restaurant. I don't want to get into that. But the other one is the dog kennel. And this thing's been in our discussions for a long time, but we were dealt a lot of bad cards when we started talking about this. Mainly, we had an old facility that we had a tenant in that had been there for many years, and they left it, unfortunately, with hazardous material in the facility, and it all had to be cleaned out, and we had a lot of old, unsustainable infrastructure that had to be worked. And I just want to thank Janelle. She was patient with the tenant. They were here. They're our very first tenant that we ever had here at the airport. And if you look at the facility now, it's really nice. The yard's cleaned out, the front porch is painted, and it's now ready for another tenant. However, we moved, as you know, because we approved this lease. The dog kennel is going to go across the street now into the old Iverson offices. Janelle was able to get the remediation. We talked about that. Remember, it was going to be, 50, 80, and it ended up being like $15,000, and the place was just spotless. It was crazy clean. If any of you went in there and seen what happened. So now the tenant, Paul and Sue, they are working diligently. They've ordered their equipment. They're getting everything set up now to open in the next few months. I'm not sure what their schedule is, but we're going to have a dog kennel where as residents with pets are going to be able to drop them off in a very safe, secure, and beautiful facility. And that building, that office, has been sitting there vacant for many, many years. And this is another renaissance of these facilities, just like the Eastside of Hangar 1, which is why we don't want to get rid of our assets, because we manage in perpetuity, right? Something will come. And that was there. So I wanted to thank Janelle on that. Another thing that Janelle has done is she went through all of our old leases. And when she did that, she found that there were leases that we weren't collecting the right amount of money. And for whatever reason that we were paying maybe the utilities, or they were supposed to pay more rent. And in one case, I know it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars that just wasn't collected. It fell through the cracks of previous administration, and just the laborious task of going through the administration work of the office and organizing our database. The leases in itself, when we talked about that and the new leases, it is incredible maybe how liable we may have been with our old leases that are now shored up. And I know Ron worked with that as well, of what leases do we need to do, and Greg and you did a lot of that as well, of protecting us moving forward with all our leases. And like Ron said, whether we have, I don't know what, if we have the ability to say we don't need planes and T-hangars, and the FAA are good with that. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that I'm not good with it, and I don't think any of us should be good with it. T-hangars are for planes, hangars are for planes, not just a broken down plane and used for storage. It's for planes. We're an airport. We're first and foremost an airport. The taxiway project, I want to go back to that. If you remember, a taxiway project was engineered at 25 feet. It was a disaster. Daryl, this is how this commission has worked so well to be able to work with the pilot community to do what's right for our aviation community. We had to go back and fight. If you remember, that 25 feet was not going to work. And Janelle brought this forward. She organized everything together with the pilot groups, and we ended up getting it 35 feet, which is a perfect width for us. All the planes that we have here, you know, the Pilatus or the Josh's plane, which is the
King Air.
King Air, can, you know, taxi there. So we don't want to forget about these things, because these were problems, right? The other thing that I want to point out is maintenance on this airfield for many years was very difficult. It was very, very difficult. We couldn't get weeds sprayed. It just was not good. And we were stuck in a situation where we had to wait until something happened. That something did happen. And the Three Stooges, or frickin' frack, and what do you guys call them?
Or the Three Stooges.
The Three Stooges. So she has Frank, and she has Gene, that have organized that facility down there. Go down there, they have it just perfectly organized. They are incredibly talented professional maintenance people that work so hard for this airport. And it's never, well, back in the day when you had Lyle and those guys, I mean, those guys were, you know, they were like, the Eastons were the greatest in the whole world, right? I mean, but these guys have done a great job, and that was under the leadership of her. Talked about working with the pilot community and the flight school and all the things that are difficult for us. As Daryl knows, that liaison position of how do we communicate, and that's been very good. The other thing I want to say, and I'll end here because I know we all want to go, is I never really realized the importance of the manager's relationship with MDOT and FAA. And real quick, in Michigan, MDOT controls all the discretionary funding. The federal FAA gives monies to states, and in most states, the FAA regional director controls that discretionary funding. In Michigan, he doesn't, or she doesn't, whoever's in that position. It's MDOT. So it's a very tricky, you want money, you got FAA, you go around FAA to get to MDOT, and it's very political, and it's a very weird scenario. And Janelle has managed that perfectly. She has like gone, and we've not get so mad at her. It's like, she goes, I gotta do it this way, I gotta do that. Until I finally realized that this is a very difficult game to play without upsetting anyone. So I bring these things up because this commission, I think, should recommend a salary, whatever that is, okay? And Ron's gonna, I'm sure, address that. But we do need to say in a motion somewhere, somehow, between now and this budget gets moved forward, that we recommend X to the board. We can't approve anything, right? But we need to make a recommendation. So I just wanted to bring that up so we start thinking about this, because it's coming up pretty quick. So again, at the end of the year, Merry Christmas, everybody. It is my honor. It is my honor to serve with each and every one of you guys. This commission means so much to me, and the job that you guys have done is just incredible. And as a resident, I really appreciate all your hard work to make this a tremendously successful, great asset to the community and every member of it that wants to come down here and utilize it for all the things that happen here. So, Janelle, thanks for a great year.
Thank you.
And I look forward to serving with you guys next year. So,
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Mr. Rathel. I know there's nobody that works harder on this airport than you. I know you live and breathe it, and Janelle, good job this year.
Thank you.
We will have a discussion and bring something at the next meeting for review. I'd like to thank everybody for their volunteer work this year and sitting on the board. I think we do important work here, and I think, as you can see by our retained earnings, we've been able to control our expenditures and our revenue, and as Mr. Rathel had said, I don't know that we've ever had this amount of earnings in our budget, and we can do some of the things that we've wanted to do. I'd also like to thank the people, Frank and Gene. I know that they kept our landscaping around our new sign watered and maintained this year, so it looks good, and we plan on having a second sign down by the tennis center, hopefully.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, that was on my list too. I forgot. I even had a picture of that. I do want to thank Ron for the landscaping that he's done, which, the new sign and the anchor and with that is turned into a beautiful entrance here to this facility. So thank you for all that, Ron.
We do have plans for more, so as our funding allows, we will
Mr.
continue to do that.
Landscaper.
So thank everybody for serving on the commission this last year. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
And with that, I will entertain a motion, or we have no public comment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Hosted by Mr. Rathel,
Support.
support by Mr. Mans, to adjourn at 6:55. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries.